I want someone who packs a rod and knows how to use it, Mason said. And have you any idea how many attempts it takes to say something like that with a moderately straight face? Well, anyhow, The Case of the Glamorous Ghost by Erle Stanley Gardner is a Perry Mason mystery, and I've got this gorgeous little pan here. It is pan number 610. I don't know if we're going to be able to get that to focus. Maybe that's focusing. And the cover art, which I think is purely gorgeous, is signed Michelle. I don't know enough about mysteries, etc., to be sure who that artist is, but they did a fantastic job. Back in 1963, I think this one was published. Actually, no, this is a second edition from later on. This is not a first. The second printing, 1963. Okay. So I was inspired to read this partly by Nick over at the Book Graveyard. He did a haul, and I'm looking at all these mysteries and going, wow, they look so spectacular. Must be time for me to read a vintage mystery. And this one is absolutely adorably vintage. Just in the small details, like someone using a mine detector to find a hidden pistol in a park. We would more normally call it a metal detector, but there you go. And on page 26, someone describes a missing person as the man is as elusive as a Halloween apple in a barrel of water. I don't know if they say things like that still in America, but I'd never heard it before. It was fantastic. Now, I'm pretty sure this isn't my first Perry Mason book. I know my parents had several of them, probably not quite as old as this book, but yeah, there were plenty. And I read a few of them when I was young. It's not primarily something that I would often read. I can't remember when I got this book, though. I wish I could, but I didn't make a note of it, and I don't think I've had it for that long. I think I bought it basically because it's a beautiful old pan, and I thought, well, maybe I'll read it one day. So as well as being inspired by Nick's great channel, I'm also doing this ABC challenge. I'm trying to read through all my to-read books, A through to Z, just getting me away from my normal reading routines, of which I have some. So normally if I was looking for a mystery thriller sort of thing, I'd head straight for James Hadley Chase, who is one of my go-tos. Or if I wanted something cozier, maybe Agatha Christie. But Gardner begins with G, and I'm about to begin my ABCG challenge, so this was perfect. And it was so much fun. I was just charmed and amazed by the details of it. Like Perry Mason and his investigator, Detective Paul Drake, and his secretary Della Street are all making all these phone calls to investigate things, and they're going through the phone operators. It's just charming and adorable. And it's a good story too. So the case of the glamorous ghost starts when Perry Mason gets to work one day, and his secretary Della Street, and she's a pretty awesome character, I've got to say. For the 60s or 50s, prime character she is. She's reading from a headline that says, "Sexy spook startles spooners." Does it? That's what the back says. I don't remember it saying that in the book. But I got pretty involved in it. No. No, that's the foreword. Moving on. Yeah. Sexy spook startles spooners. Girl gives chase with jack handle. A jack handle, in case you're wondering, and I certainly was, is actually a tyre jack that you use to change tyres on the car. So, there's this woman wandering around the park at night wearing tattered nightdress by the sound of it, and the girl gives chase because she thinks she's giving the come on to her boyfriend, and she's jealous. And then another girl later is arrested walking down the street wearing a raincoat with nothing under it. So Perry Mason is told about this by his secretary, because outside in the chambers is the sister of the girl who got picked up, who was the sexy ghost, or the glamorous ghost in this case. She thinks that Eleanor has done a dilly of a trick this time. She's the older sister, and she wants Perry Mason to take care of her. Now, Perry Mason is a lawyer, but he also investigates a lot. And I've got to say, that Erle Stanley Gardner does a marvelous balance of having a mystery and an investigation and a complicated, complex case slowly unravel. But the last part of it is a courtroom drama, and I really like courtroom dramas. So this was a perfect balance. I don't think I've read a Perry Mason for decades, and I've never seen any of the movies. I know they made a movie of this one. This inclines me to think that I'm going to be picking up more of them when I see them. So, Erle Stanley Gardner, which I didn't know, was born in 1889. He died in 1970. He was an American author, but he was a lawyer as well. And apparently he was just a little bit bored with his job. And so he started writing these stories. He had a lot of pseudonyms, a couple of which I think I actually have read at one time or another. And I believe he didn't just write fiction, but he wrote the Perry Mason series, obviously, and a few other ones. Now, Perry Mason allegedly, and according to the internet, what do I know really, was inspired by Earl Rogers, who was a trial attorney who appeared in 77 murder trials but lost only 3. Apparently there is one Perry Mason where Perry Mason loses, but I think he wins all the other ones. He was recognized for having a very flamboyant style, using demonstrations like visuals, charts, diagrams in trial before it became common practice. And I've got to say, this was really plot rich. You had a superficially simplistic plot, and the beginning of the book is very much setting up the characters and what's happening, but then we get more and more involved in some of the characters, and the background seems more and more complex. And at the end, Perry Mason goes into the trial without having any real understanding of the shape of what's happening around the whole thing. So we've got Eleanor. She claims she was married to this man, Hap something. Eleanor. Anyway, she claimed they went away to get married one weekend, and then she appears in the park with claiming amnesia. But she's claimed amnesia in the past, and her sister and her father know that she is a bit wild and she does these weird things. So slowly we unravel this case. She first met this man who is missing on traveling back from Europe, back in the days when you traveled to Europe and back on a ship instead of an aeroplane. And there was a bit of a shipboard romance, but then she didn't see him for a while. And then he re-emerged into the picture. She's in love with him. And then she wires a message saying that they've gone off to get married. Then they don't see her for a couple of weeks until she appears virtually naked in the park. She, meanwhile, is claiming amnesia, and Perry Mason gets her quietly shuffled off to a sanatorium so that the reporters who are piling around the case like flies don't get any more from her than they have to. He goes researching where she was, and more characters come out of the woodwork and more complexity, until finally, shock, horror, a whole heap of gemstones appear out of nowhere. Have I mentioned that we don't chew books? Is that a thing I've mentioned before? And by now, the man in question, the potential husband, has turned up dead, and he's been shot with Eleanor's pistol, a .38 revolver. And it looks very much like she is going to be found guilty in the trial that comes up at the end. But Perry Mason saves the day by unraveling this intricate, strange plot with heaps of different characters doing heaps of different things. And I really didn't see the ending coming exactly. I saw bits of it. I wasn't trying to unravel it. I was just along for the ride. The writing is gorgeous. It is so dated. It's so dated that you almost couldn't do it intentionally. It's like the way there was a TV series a ways back called Mad Men, and everyone was so into it because it was so vintage. I just saw a whole heap of now with people's idea of what vintage was. But this is the real thing. It is immensely satisfying, with Perry Mason reigning triumphant, Eleanor saved from the gas chamber, and the prosecutor befuddled and defeated. Fantastic book. I thoroughly recommend it. And yeah, more Perry Masons in my future, perhaps, if I can find them. This was a really rare find. I don't find pans this nice in such good condition often. So fingers crossed for more one of these days. Thank you for watching. Read good books.